Evening, are we able to go? Thank you, Boris. Good evening, everyone. My name is Councillor Davey, and I'm the chair of this committee. I'd like to welcome you all to Cambridge City Council's executive meeting, which is taking place this evening, Monday the 5th of February at 5:30. Members of the executive are, and if you could say assent to say you're here, are Councillors Bird.
Here, Chair.
Carling.
Here, Chair.
Gilderdale.
Here.
Moore.
Here.
Smart. And Martin, I think, is online.
Yeah, present.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smart. Councillor S. Smith.
Present.
Councillor Thornborough. And Councillor Wade.
Present.
Thank you very much. In terms of housekeeping, copies of the agenda can be found on the City Council's website under committee meetings, minutes and agendas. We'll please try and refer to specific page numbers within the agenda if you're referring to a specific paragraph. And can I remind all those of you present of the importance of using your microphones at all times when speaking. Please speak close to or clearly into the microphone. Please ensure that you have switched off or silenced any other devices you have so that they do not interrupt proceedings. When you are invited to address the meeting, please make sure your microphone is switched on. And when you finish addressing the meeting, please turn off your microphone immediately. Speak slowly and clearly and do not talk over anybody else. If anyone has any problems hearing throughout the meeting, please alert me by waving their hands and alerting and advising a council officer. Please can those present in the council chamber note that everything on your desk, including your laptop screen, is likely to be broadcast at some point. The camera follows the microphone being switched on, so councillors and officers are requested to wait a couple of seconds before speaking to allow the camera to catch up. And please raise your hand if you wish to speak. Please, can those indicate participating in the meeting via Teams indicate that you wish to speak via the chat option or raised hand option. Please do not use the chat column for any other purpose. The meeting chat is neither confidential nor private and therefore can be subject to an FOI or DPA request. Make sure your device is fully charged and that you switch your microphone off unless you're invited to speak. And please use a headset if available when speaking and hold the microphone close to your mouth. For the comfort of councillors, officers and the public, I may choose to call short breaks during the proceedings, although I want to indicate at this stage I'm hoping this will be over within an hour at maximum. If councillors or officers require a break at any point, though, please indicate to me and I'll halt the proceedings at the next convenient opportunity. So, moving on to agenda item 2, please could councillors declare if they have any declarations of interests and also identify which application their declaration relates to. Councillor Bird.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a member of the Cambridge Investment Board. KIP.
Councillor Smith.
I'm also a member of the Cambridge Investment Partnership Board.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Minutes of the 20th of November meeting have been submitted to this meeting for their approval. If there are any concerns, please could members raise them now, otherwise they shall be approved as a correct record. I'll take that as an assent. There are no public speakers, I understand, under item 4. Can I just confirm that?
That's correct. No public speakers.
Thank you very much. We will now move on to agenda item 5, the budget setting report for 24-25. And if I can introduce the Chief Finance Officer who will take the report to begin with. So thank you very much, Caroline.
Thank you, Chair. I will confess I wasn't expecting to introduce this report at this stage, but I'm happy to do so. But it will be brief, if that's okay.
That's fine. I think it was just if there were any adaptations, perhaps, to the S&R report, Caroline, you might want to draw people's attention to.
So the S&R report was an early iteration. It contained budget proposals and an outline of the budget context. What you have in front of you now is a full and complete budget setting report. So it contains significant additional sections beyond the S&R report. In particular, it includes calculations on business rates and council tax. It also includes a final budget strategy, and it contains my Section 25 report on the robustness of estimates and the adequacy of reserves. So it really brings the proposals and that into context. It includes three additional proposals. One revenue proposal from the communities group, and two capital proposals, one on emergency riverbank repairs and one on cycle parking at Queen Anne Terrace car park. If I can just go briefly to my Section 25 report, it looks at briefly at the way we calculate our estimates, what's included within them. And it notes at this stage we have some uncertainty and the inability to put estimates into the HRA budget for issues outstanding. What it also looks at is our reserve levels, and they are adequate, certainly for the year to come, which is what I'm reporting on. I think to go beyond that, I'd draw your attention to Section 7, which looks at the budget strategy and identifies budget gaps where the potential savings identified for our Cambridge do not meet the budget gap. So there will be a requirement in future years to achieve savings greater than those predicted at the moment for our Cambridge. You have on your seats a brief summary of some corrections for which I apologise. We were very pushed for time or unable to do a final consistency check, but those corrections apply to the report you have in front of you and have been corrected for the report that will go to council. To council will include an update on the final finance settlement for local government, and I can report that my initial look, I've seen an extra amount of 188,000 within the funding guarantee. So that will also be updated for the council report, as will any changes to the precepts that we are notified as our preceptors approve their precepts. I'm quite happy to take any questions or anything on that.
Thank you very much, Karen. Before I ask Simon to introduce the report, Councillor Bick, I wonder if you've got any questions that might have arisen.
Thank you, Chair. I do have one question for Caroline, and the other questions I've got for the Executive. I just wanted to understand a bit better than I do at the moment in what way what's described here as the second rent setting issue in the HRA, in what way that actually impinges on the general fund budget that we're looking at, because I was quite surprised. I was aware of the second rent setting issue from the HRA papers, but I was quite surprised to see it referred to in your Section 25 report for the general fund.
Yeah. The HRA, in statutory terms, is a fund within the general fund. So there is a possibility of issues within the HRA that are not containable within the HRA to spill over into the general fund. So I did take advice from SIPFA on whether whether it would be right to mention this as part of my Section 25 report, and they confirmed that it was, because it did have the potential to spill across. But it is also the case that actually the Section 25 report should refer to reserves and estimates as a whole, not just for the general fund.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Caroline. Councillor Smith, would you like to introduce the report from a political perspective?
Thank you very much, Mike. What I'd like to talk about is the other responses to the budget consultation. 263 people responded, and they told us about the most important priorities that they have for the city. And these aren't all related to direct council services, but they just relate to roles of the people the organisations we partner with and the organisations that we can influence and we're part of. And so they're worth announcing, because this is what's most important for the people of the city from this sample of the population. So delivering affordable housing was number one. Relieving congestion and providing greener transport and buses. Addressing poverty and inequality, and responding to climate change and the biodiversity crises. And when we asked people about the services that they value most, they spoke of open spaces, trees and nature reserves, waste services, community safety and the prevention of antisocial behaviour, and council housing. And I think all of those priorities and the services that people value most actually align quite strongly with our priorities, and it's very, very helpful for the public to give us these strong pointers. And it's not just through the consultation. We hear these issues every day when we're canvassing on the doorstep across the city. Now, among the options to balance budgets, they gave higher support for more partnership working with businesses, universities and the health service, working with neighbouring councils on shared services to make services more efficient and save money, and increasing money from commercial properties and either selling or letting underused buildings and assets. And it is fair to say that this budget does reflect the messages and signals that the public have sent us. And these include our council house building programme. We're delivering more new council homes per capita than any other local authority in England and Wales. We are supporting Cambridge and Peterborough Combined Authorities' work on bus reform and investment in new bus services to serve the city. We're pump priming a new social investment fund for innovations in tackling homelessness and providing better life chances for young people at risk, alongside new investment in our antisocial behaviour team. And we've added to the Climate Change Fund so that we're ready to match government grants as they're made available for housing retrofit and a city centre heat network. Investing in our waste fleet to serve new communities, switching to sustainable fuels, and installing PV panels so we use renewable energy to charge our electric vehicles. We're joining Innovate Cambridge with the university and businesses so we give voice to the city's interest in government and on international stages. We're preparing business plans for the future of the Guildhall, Mandela House, so that we can increase rental income, reduce our accommodation costs, and reduce our carbon footprint. On our service transformation programme, focusing on services, on needs, and reducing costs through digitalisation and new ways of working. But government austerity means that even meeting challenging savings targets will be insufficient to close the forecast funding gaps. And our case to government is simply this. For global competitiveness, Cambridge, in life science and technology cannot be taken for granted. Growth from private prosperity and decline in public services are combining to reduce residents' individual and collective quality of life. We call on government to promote good growth that invests in the education and skills of residents, infrastructure and public services, supports enterprise and innovation, and reverses widening inequalities. Our ask of government is to increase the City Council's share of business rates growth so services can be provided for new communities without harm to existing ones. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Smith, thank you very much. Can I open up for questions, initially from the opposition spokes at this stage? So, Councillor Bick, would you like to ask any questions of Councillor Smith?
Thank you. I was interested that Councillor Smith opened his remarks by talking about the budget consultation itself. And I wonder how he believes that it has actually helped with the budget process. I mean, it states, I think, in the section on the budget consultation, that it informed decisions relating to this final budget setting report. And I just wonder which decision within the BSR it helped to inform, which one was in doubt in his mind, that he was really waiting for this consultation to help with.
Yes, the consultation was on the medium-term service programme, so strategy. So it was a high-level consultation rather than the specifics of the budget. So there was general endorsement of the council's priorities within which the government the budget was framed. So that's how it worked out. I think there was one reflection, and we had discussion about the budget consultation, and I think when you look at the profile of the people who responded, it was very heavily weighted to better off households, but it actually makes it even more remarkable about how people were prioritising measures to reduce inequalities in the city, and I think that speaks to the social conscience and generosity of people in the city, that they care about our citizens who are not so well off as the rest of us. And I thought that was very, very positive. But I think we will discuss how we do this consultation. This is only the second time we've done it, Councillor Bick, so we're still very much in a learning phase on this. But one thing I'm certainly drawing from the public consultation is that next time we try and have a stratified survey so that it properly reflects the demographics of the city as a whole.
Chair, if I could just
Of course, Councillor.
follow through on that. I mean, I think the stratification and the kind of the way it wasn't really hitting the whole of the spectrum in the city is an important aspect of it. But another important aspect of it is that, as you said in your response, it wasn't really on the budget proposals. And I think that the requirement of us as a local authority is to consult the public on our budget proposals, not on our longer term financial strategy. And no problem with asking people about both. But I think that if people have something tangible in front of them, it becomes much more easy to kind of explain the importance and the compelling nature of the decisions coming up, that maybe it would encourage them to participate a bit more broadly. And that's what we did last year. And I think it was possible then to point to some specific things in the final budget that were changed as a result of that. And I think that is part of the process that has changed this year. And really, that's why I asked my question: in what way what way were you really informed by such really rather general questions, which some of which were a little bit like choosing between motherhood and apple pie, and not necessarily helping on the actual decisions on the budget proposals in front of us. really would ask if you were prepared to go back to the process with what we did last year. We published budget proposals straight after Christmas. I mean, to have those prepared and put in front of the public in time for the consultation doesn't seem to me too much of an ask, really.
Okay. Well, I think there is a counter-argument I hear what you're saying, but I think there was a valid counter-argument, which is that because we've changed the budget-making process, a lot of the budget changes are happening within the group budgets, and that's the new discipline that we've introduced, so that we previously just had a bid culture in the council without budget holders making too much effort about what are the things that they could make savings on before they started to look at accommodating new growth pressures and so on. So what we're only seeing in the budget process now are the exceptions. We're just looking at those sums that are too big to be accommodated within the existing budget. So we're not really presenting won't be really presenting the full details in the consultation process. So on that basis, I think it's just much better to be looking at the overall picture and the overall direction of travel and priorities that we're setting than the specific details. And I think over a £74 million budget, to start having discussions and arguments about the savings of £50,000 and £25,000 here and there is really to trivialise what is a very serious process. And I think I'd rather just stick to the strategic level and let people have their say on those big issues. I think that's much more valid way of doing it.
Councillor Carling, I can see you're desperate to come in, although this is actually Councillor Bick's opportunity. You haven't come later, but I suspect it's in relevance to this particular point. So, Councillor Carling, would you like to say what you've got to say?
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to contribute very slightly in sort of to supplement Councillor Smith's response, just because I think Councillor Smith's been very clear in us being flexible and willing to look at this process again. But at the same time, if we did what we did last year, we'd be asking the public sort of for their views on the central provision review, or the realignment of the CCTV-based budget, or if I look at some capital bids on fire management compliance at the Grand Arcade multi-storey car park. That is not particularly helpful to us in the same way that getting people's broad opinions on the direction that the council should be taking and where we should be sort of strategically focusing and putting our money is.
Thank you, Councillor Carling. Councillor Bick.
Yeah, I was actually extremely helpful to have Councillor Carling's additional comment there, because in actual fact, when we did do the process differently last year, which was also after we had changed our budget process, we did actually allow people to comment on individual budget proposals, and it did contribute to changing some of them. Now, you may be wanting to quote some things that people would never in a month of Sundays want to change this year, but that is not generally the case. And I think last year there was quite a strong input we got about what we were trying to do with the bus subsidies, which very reasonably the council agreed to change and wait, which was, I think, the right thing to do. I really don't think that the fact that people could comment on individual budget items needs to stop people also commenting on the bigger issues as well. But I think the two side by side would be the most powerful option. I really would urge you to, as you say, you will consider that again, because I think it makes a bit of a tick box approach to public consultation if you do hold it at such a general level.
Simon. Sorry, Councillor Smith. Do you want to respond?
We will consider it, and we've agreed that we'll have out of meeting discussions about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Do you have any further questions, Councillor Bick?
I'm afraid I do.
That's fine. No, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, that's good. So I wanted to ask about the reserves. that the projection of the reserves looks very different from how it looked last year, partly because of the move of £20 million into an earmarked reserve, which has got a purpose to it. So I think that that is good, but it still leaves the question of the remaining reserves. And although they are smaller than they would otherwise have been, on page 42, they still rise to more than 20 million by 28-29, which is, I think, 3 times the level of the target risk-based reserve that we require of ourselves. And I just feel that that we're looking at the nature of a reserve that once you reduce it by committing money to a purpose, then actually after a few years you find yourself back into the same situation. And I know that there are all sorts of uncertainties behind those projections. I've read the report, but I just wonder what the policy now is for a reserve which could still grow to £20 million in a few years' time.
So, thank you, Councillor Dick, and I'm pleased to revisit this question. So, the normal accounting convention is that capital expenditure does not get recognised in the column in front of you on page 42 until it's all ready to go. Then it gets recognised and it gets moved into the capital programme from the reserves. So, I'd heard you talk about this accumulating reserves so many times, and I'd answered it so many times, I decided, well, actually, let's just show you what it looks like when we kind of like make a slight breach to the convention and say, look, we're making an earmark, 2 earmark funds here, one for the civic quarter and one for the climate change fund. And then you can see what it really begins to look like. And then I've had people saying, well, what have you done that for? It's not approved. And we haven't consulted on it and so on and so forth. It's just illustrative to show you that we're not going to accumulate up to £40 billion in reserves because we've got these potential expenditure coming on stream. And now people are saying, well, where's the funding for the Market Square and where's the money for the Corn Exchange? Well, of course, it's sitting there waiting to be crossed into capital programme in due course. So we know we've got impending commitments that's going to draw on that money, all right? But within all of that, we have, if like, the day-to-day capital expenditure just to keep the show on the road. And it's all sorts of really interesting things like electrification of all the vehicles and just things that crop up. And we've just had this emergency funding to repair the riverbank, for example. There's always call on capital. Some it's been planned, some is unpredictable. But one of the things we've got as well in this is that we've got great uncertainty over the income that's going to come in. And that's why I made the remarks about business rates retention, because actually the financial stability of this council in many ways hinges on not just our stewardship and prudent management of the resources, but also about what happens to business rates retention. And whether that's reset, we are crippled. It's going to be really serious for us if that happens. So we need to campaign to stop that. And that's why I'm saying you can't have a prosperous, competitive global city with hollowed out public services. And that's the way to fix our financial problem. Because if you look at that line, after 25-26, the business growth retention, where Caroline has mentioned is at risk, could drop to as little as 1.5 million contribution coming in year on year. And then that number isn't going to get anywhere near 20 million, and it's going to have more than 20 million pounds worth of pressures on it. So we'll have to become a borrowing authority, and we have to be paying interest and minimum revenue provision, and then that puts pressures on the savings, on the general fund, on our frontline services. So that's why I've shown it like that. And it really does indicate to us in more graphic detail that we're not swimming in cash, as a number of members think we are. It's not the case. We are having to make serious efforts to cut our expenditure, manage our capital programme, and that's why it's like that.
If I can just chip in there, Councillor Vick, as you'll know, Councillor Moore and I and yourself were at the first briefing of the market traders last week, and the first question I was asked was, is there the cash? And I was able to respond, due to the prudent budgeting that's been put forward through this BSR, that yes, there is. And I think that's quite an important statement to make, both in terms of the wider public, but also to the market traders, because we're serious about doing up the centre of the city. Okay, I suspect there's more, Councillor Vick.
Not terribly much, actually, Chair. Sorry.
Please feel free, though.
But I just wanted to put into the context what it says on page 52, which is the table of total usable reserves. And I think that it's possibly worthwhile just paying a moment of attention to that, which puts actually even the general fund reserve into the wider context of the reserves which are defined as usable that the council has in its possession. And I don't need to comment, but it's considerably more than the general fund reserve, and it's possibly the number that we should be thinking about if something really, really bad happened, and that is 149 million pounds, which is really quite a lot of money. But anyway, if you'd like to comment, I'll welcome it, but otherwise, food for thought, I guess.
Simon, could you put your, sorry, Councillor Smith, could you put your mic on?
This is the totality of money in the Treasury, as you know, and it's been drawn down rapidly, and it's split between HRA and the general fund. And when you look at the funding in the general fund and the capital programme and the reserves, you'll find that we're working our way through that at quite a rapid rate. So yeah, it's a lot of money, but there's a lot of money going out the door too.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you. Also, just a reminder that we are in a climate crisis. I think it's fallen off the radar a little bit in the news, but 2023 was the hottest year on record. And although we're working really hard and doing a lot as a council to achieve our target of being a net zero carbon council by 2030, I would expect that in the future we will want more than is available in these reserves in order to combat the impact on residents and to adapt and to cut our emissions further and faster.
Thank you, Councillor Moore.
No more questions.
Thank you very much, Councillor Vick. Any questions or comments from the executive members? Councillor Thornborough.
I'd just like to say that last Wednesday the Combined Authorities budget was approved, and it includes budgets for money for our bus subsidies in Cambridge. In fact, a bit more money was put into their budget than is saved from our budget. So that's a good message. And I'd just like to thank Councillor Anna Smith for the work she did in making sure that that was included in the budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Thornborough. I'm sure we'd all like to echo your thoughts on Councillor Smith's work on behalf of the CPCA. And remember, she is a member of our executive too, and a valued member of that executive. Okay, any further questions? I've got one comment. My only comment is to thank Councillor Smith for his work. And I'd also like to highlight the fact that it can get lost in these times of austerity, that the council is putting in a huge amount of money into capital funding for the benefit of this city. And I think that's exemplified by, I think it's £54 million that we're proposing should be spent with partners at East Barnwell to tackle some of the issues faced by one of the most deprived wards in our city. And allied to that, what's already committed is £36 million or thereabouts to improve and enhance the civic centre, which I think demonstrates our desire to make sure Cambridge is a better place to live and be in the future. And so I'd like to say thank you to Councillor Smith for all your work with the officers on this. So on that note, can we go to the recommendations, which are on page 6 and 7, all 15 of them, would you believe? I intend to take these en bloc, rather individually, otherwise they'll take longer to go through than the meeting itself. So are people happy to take the recommendations en bloc? Can I just check with that? Thank you very much. All those in favour of the recommendations en bloc?
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. That concludes the formal matters, but I would like to conclude the actual meeting by expressing my gratitude and thanks to Caroline Reber. I think this will be your final formal meeting, 10 years on. And I personally like to say thank you for all you did for me when I was in Simon's role and all you've done for this authority. It's been a joy to work with you, and your prudent stewardship of this authority, I mean that in a good way, Caroline, is wholly welcome and wholly recommended, because it means that unlike many other authorities, we are in a strong position to take this city forward. And I hold you mainly responsible for that and the way you've challenged us and worked with us over those last 10 years. So thank you very much. Thank you, Caroline. And on that sad note, although I'm sure you might not be too disappointed to be leaving, I think we should conclude the meeting. Thank you all very much.